Hello and welcome to section 2. In this section, we're going to work with the Ruby programming language, which is the language behind Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails, as you know, is a web app development framework, and even though it can be considered a language by itself now due to the advancements and the features that it brings within the framework itself, Ruby is still the programming language that's behind the framework. So, in order to be really good at Ruby on Rails, we need to have a basic understanding of Ruby and how to work with Ruby. And Ruby is a beautiful object-oriented programming language. It's a pure object-oriented programming language. Everything in Ruby is an object. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. We're going to find out more and more as we progress through this section. Now, one of the things about Ruby is the emphasis is on programmer happiness. If you actually look at how Ruby reads, it reads a lot like English. So it's meant to give you a good time while you write any code, which should be encouraging because then you will want to keep writing more and more code and make it more elegant. It's actually very easy to write elegant code in Ruby. So to find out more about Ruby programming language, this is the official website. That's www.ruby-lang.org. This is not the only one. There are a lot of other resources for Ruby that you can find online, but this is a good starting point. So there are options to download, which we've already taken care of. There's documentation, libraries, etc., etc. So I would encourage you to give this a read. And this website, Ruby Lang, usually has any updates associated with Ruby and any new releases and all information right here. And has some helpful links over here as well. You can get started with Ruby in the browser, and a lot of other fun reading material. Okay, so as is the norm with any programming language, we're going to start with Hello World in Ruby, and we're going to do it in multiple ways. I have all three development environments that I've talked about before right here. I have REPL, and I have some commented out code here, which I'm going to walk through. This is AWS Cloud9, again, commented out information here, which we're going to walk through. And this is a regular Cloud9, not the AWS Cloud9, okay? The old interface, basically. And I'll also show you how to use the terminal to run this as well. So we're going to look at all four. First, let's do the easiest one, which is REPL. To start off, this pound over here, or the hashtag, that stands for a comment. And Ruby, if you put a pound in a line, whatever you say after that pound in that line will be ignored by Ruby. So you can basically use this for comments. So right here, I've commented out some code. Let's uncomment this first line, which says puts space and within quotes hello world. Now puts, this is actually put s, meaning put string, all right? Short form for put string. And this simply means print out the argument that you give it, which is here, hello world, to the console, all right? So if this was a file, a Ruby file, and I saved it and I ran it, it would print it out to my output. So in REPL, to run this file, since this is the only line of code that's not commented, I can simply press the play button, and there you go. It says hello world. Now we come to another item in Ruby. What is this nil over here? Everything in Ruby returns something. And put string simply outputs whatever you give it to the console. Therefore, what is returned is nil, meaning nothing is returned. So to elaborate even more, put string is a built-in function that Ruby provides for you. And when you are calling this function, it's going to expect to return something because it's Ruby and everything returns something. But put string itself doesn't return anything. It simply prints out whatever you give it to the screen. So the return value is nil. So another way I can do this is p, okay? I can say p hello world. If I run this, check it out. There is the puts value for hello world. Then there is the p value for hello world. And notice how this time it didn't return nil, which means p doesn't return nil. It actually returns whatever the argument is that you give it. So hello world. All right. Another one is print. And the difference with print and put s is basically print does not have a new line afterwards. So put s basically has a new line after it prints whatever argument you give it. It adds a new line to it. That's why it goes to the next line. So let's see print. There you go. But you didn't really see what this new line actually does. So I'm going to put this on top over here. If I run this here, check it out. Hello world, right? This was produced by print. This was produced by put s, and then the p was in this line. So to make print behave like puts, all I can do is add this /n, which stands for new line, special character, right? New line within the string. And if I run this now, check it out. Hello world. All right. So I've been saying string. And if you're coming from another programming language, or if you've done some programming, you know what a string is. If you don't, and this is your first foray in programming languages, then string is basically, think of it as textual data. Whenever you need to work with any kind of text, which is a lot in web application or any programming, you're going to need to work with a lot of textual data. Then in Ruby, you use strings for it. All right. That's one way of doing hello world. So in Amazon Web Services and Cloud9, in both of them, I basically created this folder for Ruby projects, and then I created a file within this Ruby projects folder. So right here, I'm in my Ruby projects folder, and I created this file called Playground RB, and I did it by right-clicking on Ruby projects and then new file. You can do this from here as well by saying touch, and then give it the name of a file. So let's say Ruby playground.rb. Notice how it shows up over here. Okay, so that's how I did that. To run this, since I don't have the interactive console going over here like REPL, I can run this file by, actually I haven't saved it. So I uncommented put s hello world. I'll hit Command S to save, and then since I'm in the Ruby projects directory, I can run this file by saying Ruby and then the name of the file. So playground.rb. Check it out. It outputs hello world. All right. Very similar to this, except this does it in the console directly. Right. Same thing here. I can do this. I basically created this Ruby projects folder, within it playground.rb. So Ruby playground.rb hello world. All right, so in your local, here's my terminal in my Mac. If you're using a Windows machine and you followed the instructions to install Ubuntu Linux and you have a file directory, you can create a new directory, which I've done here, Ruby projects. I can simply say mkdir and then name of directory to create it, right? And if I look at the path I'm in, pwd, you see it gives me the whole path of where I am. You can do this in your Linux terminal in your Windows machine as well. So go ahead, create a directory for Ruby projects if you're following along there. And then I'm using Atom as the text editor, so I can do atom dot. All right, and this will open this in Atom, this folder. All right, and then right click, new file. I can say playground.rb, and then put hello world. Okay, let me save that. And then I can simply run it from here by saying Ruby playground.rb. There you go, hello world. So those are the different interfaces. I wanted to show you all of them so you're familiar with using different integrated development environments, or your local, or REPL for that matter. And I'm going to stick to REPL for now for the remainder, and feel free to try it out in whichever environment you're in. So I'll code this out. I want to say hello world using a variable. What's a variable? If you did the quiz, the coding of the quiz in section 1, then you already know that a variable is simply a name that we give to a reference to some location in memory, okay? So think of it as an address. Variable is an address referring to some location in memory, and whatever we put in that location in memory, for example here, we're putting this string hello world there. we can reference it by simply calling the address, right? So we're assigning greeting to hello world. So greeting is pointing to hello world, and we can simply say put s greeting instead of having to say put s hello world. So that's a variable. And then I can run this. Check it out. Hello world. All right. And I can change the value of greeting to, let's say, hello Mashur, and then put s greeting. If I run it now, check it out. Hello Mashur. All right. So that's the second way. I wanted to show you how to use a variable. And then the third way is I want to define a method. So I'm going to code this out. I want to define a method to say hello, and the method will take in an argument, meaning whatever I want it to say. First of all, let me do it the simple way right here. I'll get rid of that, get rid of that. You define a method in Ruby by using this keyword def, all right? And def stands for define, is short form for define, and then you give a space and then the method name. And to signify the end of the method, you put the end keyword. And whatever you put within it is going to be the code within your method, all right? So for my method of saying hello, I want to simply put string hello world. Okay, if I run it, okay, what happened? What happened is I simply ran this file. I didn't actually call the method. So all it returned was this method say hello, which got created. Okay, that's great, but I actually need to run it. So I'm simply going to call my method by referencing its name over here. And then if I run it, check it out, hello world. But methods are, if you think of methods, you want to think of them as they take something from you and then they perform some function and give you back something in return, right? So hard coding something like puts hello world is not really useful. So I want my method to say whatever I specify over here. So let's say hello Mashur. So if I want my method to say something like this, then I need to give my method an ability to take in this value and then print it. So the way to do that is by giving your method the ability to take in arguments. These are called arguments. So you open and close parentheses, and within it, you can say anything. I'll just simply refer to it as thing to say. So whenever I call my method and then I provided this string gets passed into this method as its argument, and the thing to say will be hello Mashur. Okay? So instead of puts hello world, I can simply say puts thing to say. All right? So I'm expecting this to say hello Mashur. If I run it, check it out, hello Mashur. Now, what if I want this to say hello world, Ruby is great? Okay? If I say that, there you go. Hello world, Ruby is great. Perfect. So you've seen how to say hello world in Ruby in multiple ways, using variables and using a method. And you've also seen multiple development environments and how they work, how you can make it work with Ruby. Now going forward, I'm not going to show you in each development environment, obviously. I'm just going to pick one for the video and stick to it. But now at least you have exposure to all of them, and you can pick and choose which one you want to utilize. And once you like one, just stick with it. All right. So hope you enjoyed that video. I'll see you in the next one.